Hello, everyone, and welcome to our podcast. I'm Dani, and today, Great.com talks with Jeff Eaton, the Executive Director and founder of Young Adult Cancer Canada. If you haven't heard of it, they work to support young adults living with, through, and beyond cancer. Remember, if you're new here to this podcast, press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app. Oh, hi, Jeff, and welcome.
Great to be here.
Oh, it's a pleasure to talk to you. And I think I kind of get repetitive, but when it comes to this subject, it's really something important to me, really close to my heart. And I'm really eager to learn more about YACC. Let's begin about history. I think your history and the organizations kind of walk hand in hand, right? Could you tell us about it and what motivated you to create it?
Yeah, I was, 25 years ago, next month actually. I was a regular new university grad, 22 years old, started my own little business in school, pushing my limits anywhere I could find them, and truly having the time of my life. Definitely thought I was invincible, Danielle. Perhaps that is the rite of passage for 22-year-olds. And then one Friday night at a friend's business reception, passed out, hit my head. Went to the hospital. They did a blood test because I'd passed out, and then that started a whole chain of tests and nurses and doctors and nurses and doctors and tests and over. A few days later, I was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia, AML for short. My whole world changed with that diagnosis, no question. I had gone from kind of moving out on my own and establishing some physical independence, the fun pursuit of financial independence, engaging social spaces, volunteering, active sports. Almost everything in my life changed within a month. I had moved back home with my parents, closed my business. My social circle was, falling inside itself, and there was there would be no sports or competitive activity for me for quite a while. So cancer definitely impacts every area of your life, and I felt that very early in my space. I had a whole bunch of treatment and ultimately had a bone marrow transplant from my dad. Super, super rare that a parent, child are a match for a bone marrow transplant, but that's the case for me. So I had that transplant, and while I was having that transplant or preparing for it, I had started to think about what could be next and what I might want to do with this experience. And that is where the idea for YACC really was born late one night in a hospital, just thinking about my own experience and how I had been sharing it at the time with a community, a group of people in the community and friends and family. And I let that germinate for a while. And a year later, after my transplant, I started YACC and initially really focused on kids in high schools and talking about cancer and challenges in their life. And then my cancer came back a year later, a year into YACC. So I actually had a second transplant from my dad again. A diagnosis of cancer in your 20s is tough. For me, I would say a relapse was way tougher. It was like this foundation of confidence that I had in my health originally was just destroyed. So a really unique start for YACC, we'll say. To have AML twice in your 20s, two transplants. I spent time in ICU on life support and drug-induced coma. I was super sick guy for a while. I think I'm the luckiest person on the planet, and I would love someone to prove me wrong, but I think I am, and I live my life that way. 3 years into YACC, we did our first strategic plan, and that involved looking across Canada to see what's going on for young adults, who's doing stuff. Is there a big brother or a big sister we can be friends with? We didn't find anybody. So our vision really became locked on what you just mentioned is, it's about support for young adults with, through, and beyond cancer. And we really haven't strayed from that since that time. And we continue to push on that and grow our community every day and continue to support them every single day.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I think you brought such a, well, it is a personal tale, but it's more than that, right? It's really, I could feel you, feel what happened to you. And I love when you say that I was ready to have my take on life, right? Because this is how we feel when we are in our 20s. It's basically a moment when you say, I'm going to build my things my way, my path, nothing can stop me. And then something so big, so heavy, and so devastating happened. And just to get our audience more on board with us, let's talk about the numbers of cancer in young adults in Canada. First, actually, what exactly from what is the age, let's say, the age gap for young adults, and what are the numbers that you're seeing right now in Canada?
Yeah, great question. So I think there's no solid consensus around this. There definitely is growing agreement around the adolescent young adult. We often just refer to it as young adult, but we're talking about those in their late teens, 20s and 30s. 15 to 39 diagnosed. YACC is also we welcome the pediatric survivors who are diagnosed at a younger age and are now young adults. Um, a friend of mine from a long time ago said one time that when you're a pediatric oncologist in the kids hospital, 90% of your patients are under 15. When you're a medical oncologist in the adult hospital, more than 90% of your patients are over 40. So if you flip that on its head, this cohort of adolescents and young adults are really 10% or less of everybody's work, which really means, Danielle, we're no one's priority. And I think you see that in the experience of young adults. I think you see it in their experience in the cancer system often. I think you definitely see it in their experience after treatment in what I think is most often the most difficult phase, which is this post-treatment space of survivorship or recovery. In the 15 to 39 group in Canada, we're looking at about 8,000 diagnosed a year. That's about 22 a day. And there's estimates that using some prevalence data that there's 250,000 Canadians that are living with or beyond a diagnosis of cancer as a young adult. So not the majority of the cancer population in Canada, but a really important, significant subgroup, not the least of which is because of our potential to help, right? Like we're the leaders of today and tomorrow, and we have such this mix of potential and responsibility oftentimes. We're a really important group. And I think there's two real important reasons why we deserve more resources and attention. And one of them is that cancer is different for us. We've touched on it briefly already, but life is different for young adults. You just have different things going on, finishing school, starting career, starting family sometimes, kind of the foundation for the rest of your life. So you put cancer in the middle of that and it really creates unique challenges. And the other part is, I think, a universal truth. I think this, I believe this applies to all cancer patients, is recovery does take longer than treatment. But we focus, I would argue, a disproportionate amount of our resources on treatment. It's a really important phase. There's no question about that. In Canada, we spend about 75 cents out of every cancer dollar on treatment. Survivorship care, supportive care, the other elements of the continuum are really neglected, I would suggest to you. And the young adult cancer experience that we see in the community that we support every day really supports that this area of actual recovery is deeply overlooked. And I would say it's probably it's definitely a personal thing for me. It's, I guess, who I am as a person, is that for sure quantity of life is significant. Like when I was 22, I kind of felt like I'm sure I got 60 years left. I took that for granted in my naive state as a young adult. But I also feel so strongly that loving the years that you get is just as important as how many you get. And I don't know that we have fully, in fact, I believe we really haven't prioritized quality of life and how significant that is. Uh, what have we really achieved if we've just improved survival rate, but we've left survivors with a train wreck of a life to navigate and manage after treatment's over?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think this is a powerful moment, right? When you shift our focus from helping people in the moment, but making a long lasting impact in their lives and building them up for what's coming next. And thinking of that and actually adding to it, one part that when I was doing my research on your website, I found very appealing. This, I think when you talk in there, when you say something about your mission, there was a bit that reads connection to, you're looking to create connection to peers, reach out of isolation and create a source of inspiration, right? And that got so strongly on me. What programs do you have and how do you make this first long lasting impact happen? And how do you bridge people out of isolation?
Great perspective, because those are meaningful words that were definitely written in our mission on purpose. So I think almost universally for young adults, when they're diagnosed with cancer, they're the first one of their friends to get it. So right away, if you're lucky, like I was, to have friends and family that were really supportive and loving, um, even when you have that, you don't have anybody that really gets authentically what you're going through. So you're almost like an alien in your own life right away. And that comes with this state of isolation. People can be profoundly loved and supported, yet supremely isolated at the same time. And that is often the case for young adults. So a connection to peers is one of the most powerful parts of a patient's experience and potentially their recovery as well. And we've known since Brad Zebrack's study in 2006 that young adults with cancer want to connect with other young adults with cancer more than they want support from anyone else. It doesn't mean mom and dad and our partners and friends and siblings, they're all still important, but a connection with another young adult cancer survivor was rated the most important. And I think, Danielle, that speaks to the human condition that I think, of course, exists in the young adult cancer space, but I think it's the human condition. We are social beings. We crave connection with each other. And if you look around your life, I would suggest for you and anyone listening, you will find formal and informal ways and networks and groups of connection with people who have similar challenges, goals, or dreams. Professional associations, schools at a university, the people who play bridge on Sundays at the old age home. Like our whole life is filled with these networks of connection with others. And for young adults, that isolation proves to be almost insurmountable for too many of them, because finding others like them is incredibly difficult sometimes. So that bridge out of isolation is our outreach to them. It is, we're young adults, so we're tech savvy. And we've come up in a time of beautiful technology in many respects. So the web-based offerings that we've had have been kind of part of our early programming, the ability to be present for any young adult across the country who has internet access, for example. So that's part of how that started. And then that has grown to include, a complement of face-to-face initiatives in different parts of the country and beautiful extra layers of web-based programming. But I would also say philosophically, Danielle, we've been about community. That was the goal. It wasn't ever just to kind of push through this next class of a program and then on to the next and on to the next. And there's nothing wrong with that program model if that's what yours is. But our philosophy was much more about building a community. So having the participants in the web community come together face to face when we were able to do that, and then have them stay connected in the digital space between the face-to-face events and cycle and cycle and cycle. And we've been doing that for a long time. And of course, the web-based initiatives, are stronger when the people have had the face-to-face connections, and the face-to-face connections are stronger when people have had the digital connections. And so it's a beautiful complement, really, I think. And that's how we've built our organization and our community, and it's still very much how we think about things. Is let's get them connected, let's keep them connected in community, and then while they're in this community, of course, it gives us opportunities to provide a whole variety of interventions to help them with the challenges they're facing.
That's truly beautiful and quite impactful, I would say. I think this urge that you mentioned, finding our peers, it is what moves us forward sometimes, right? We need to be connected. And it's really beautiful to see that you created this community to not just provide like in the moment support, but also a lifelong bond between people eventually. So it is really, really beautiful.
Thank you. You tapped into it. You know what? Because so many of the friendships made in the YACC community are lifelong bonds. They are like the most intimate, profound friendships that people have ever had. And that's what happens when you create some safety in a community, and some, well thought out programming to guide them through opening up, and then giving them places to connect with others that are like them. It's not really complex formula, but it's really powerful though.
Well, absolutely. I think it's probably one of the most powerful things that I have experienced myself, even though I haven't gone through such a thing like this. But really thinking about it, it's really what kind of glues us together. So it's really, as I said, powerful. It's incredible. Guys, we touched some base here. We try to talk about it, but I urge you to go to their website, which is youngadultcancer.ca. You can get more information in there. You can get in touch with them. You can learn more about specific programs. I actually would say that you should check the Retreat Yourself program. And it's really a cool idea. And check this web solutions that Jeff was talking to us about, especially the YACC chat. It's really something great. And if this is actually something to ask you, Jeff, if anyone that is listening to us right now, it's going through the situation or know someone that's going through the situation, how they can join your community, how they can ask for help.
Yeah, so you're great, important question. Youngadultcancer.ca is the web hub. They can access tons of stories, thousands of articles about challenges and issues that young adults have dealt with. It's a way in to connect with all of those digital programs that we have offering. So it's available there. Our mission is primarily focused in Canada because that's where our charitable status is. But there's so many resources that we have available for people who if they want to connect, no matter where they are in the world. The young adult cancer experience is fairly universal in its themes, I would suggest. The challenges that young adults face around the world. No question they would vary depending on where in the world you were specifically, but I think that there's a lot more in common than is different. So we would love people to connect if they wish, and if you know young adults in your life who you feel could benefit from YACC, we are best when shared.
Thank you for that. And talking about connections, one very important question I need to ask you today is for also anyone that is listening to us and got inspired by the work that you do, how can they get involved and support your mission?
Yeah, so we are 23 years old as an organization, and we've only made it this far because tens of thousands of people have helped in some way. Some have given their money, some have given their time, some have made connections, some have been referrals, hosted events. We are a charitable organization that basically lives on the generosity of others. So if there's anybody that is interested or curious to connect with YACC to help us reach more young adults, we are grateful for that. We would love to engage with them and explore doing something incredible together.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this conversation, Jeff. I really learned a lot, and I do have to I hope you go far with that mission and that people actually got engaged and help out. Thank you so much.
Great to have been with you, Danielle, and to explore your curiosity. Take care of you.
Thank you. And for everybody listening and watching, if you enjoyed this episode, press subscribe on YouTube or in your podcast app, because that shows the algorithms that this is an important conversation and more people can learn about the importance of the Young Adult Cancer Canada. Thank you for staying with us and go to their website, see what they do, and see if you can help. Bye. See you in the next episode.